All right. This podcast today brought to you by DraftKings. Download the DraftKings app. Use the promo code HAM. And then in addition to getting into the big DraftKings $1 million top prize with your first deposit, you get a free shot at that. When you use the promo code HAM, you can also get in our game, which we'll put the link down in the description on our YouTube video. I think we can put it in the description on the podcast too. So either way, you should be able to get that link.
And for those listening on the podcast, we'll tweet it out, and I'll link it on my Instagram somehow. So
yeah,
should be a fun way to, open back up the PGA Tour. It's actually, we've done it a lot over the last couple of years for football, and it's pretty set up kind of perfectly for golf. This would be my first time ever doing it for golf, but just building a little team and same mindset, right?
Yep.
You get 6 players.
Yeah,
I'm actually pretty excited.
I've already got my roster in. You've got yours in. So there's in the game that we have, which is not related. Definitely download the app and use the promo code HAM. But then also get in our game. As of this recording, we're the only two in the game because we just made it seconds ago. So go get in that game. And then podcast also brought to you by Raycon earbuds. That's buyraycon.com, B-U-Y, buyraycon.com/ham.
Yep, the new E25s.
Off.
They're sweet. They're best earbuds yet. You have them. I have them. I'm going to wear them to work out a little later.
Good.
So, love them.
All right, a lot to get to. A lot happened last week. We only had one podcast last week. I got some thoughts on last week and the carryover to this week and what it will lead to. So we'll get to that as well coming up in the podcast today. But we thought we would start with just the fact that we do have sports this week. I mean, we've had a few events, I'd say, right? Like the Tiger Phil deal was an event. The week before with the 4 guys, that was an event. But as much money...
the Michael Jordan documentary became an event, but it wasn't like live sport.
Yeah. Well, the reason I call those things event is like as much money was on this. Like we raised $21 million. Like Tiger, there wasn't like he just wanted to win he wanted to win, but there wasn't $15 million on the putt that was going to get lost if he didn't make it. It was just all that money was going somewhere, whether he made the putt or missed the putt, right?
Guy Tom Brady was hitting like 200-yard slices into the trees on every hole.
There
wasn't
until he hit the shot of the day.
Yeah, there was an element of him just slapping it around.
Do you think we'll get DraftKings baseball? Is that coming back at any point?
Well, it's pretty nuts. We've been talking about this. Once Corona got, really serious in terms of shutting everything down early April, and it was clear, like, we're going to be missing things for a little while. I know me personally, I thought everything would come back around June at some point in time, right? Just early, mid, just start reamping everyone back into the mode of things.
Yeah, I didn't think I would get 3 quarantine haircuts, and I don't know how long. It's been like 2 months since I got my second one.
Well, I never thought that it would take the NBA, and they feel like they're getting a lot of kudos online. It took them 3 months just to announce that they're 2 months away. That's pretty nuts when you really take a step back and look. Like, couldn't they kind of ramp up in a week or two? At least get everyone back together, which I'm still baffled they couldn't. NASCAR, like you said, I think has been going on for a couple weeks. Golf was always, I'd have to look back when they announced, but it felt like, just off the top of my head, late April, like we're going to be back in mid-June. Like they had this date set, or maybe early May, but it's been set now for at least a month, maybe longer. The golf was coming back this week. Baseball, I was confident before I really thought about it. Maybe I just gave them way too much credit that they would just figure out a fucking way to get on the same page. I thought baseball would fly back before basketball, and clearly hell, guy, if they figure something out in the next week, they still could, beat them by a month or whatever, or even start training camps in a couple weeks. But I'm starting to get the feeling, did you read the Jeff Passan in-depth article about the money and the differences and how much they're losing? I mean, it was a pretty complicated article, but you also saw, like, couldn't you guys, the owners, and listen, I tend, I guess, to be more pro-owner in the sense of I'm just more pro-sport. I want the sport to happen because I'm pro-fan. Fans pay my bills. They also pay the players' bills. The players always pretend like this money comes from somewhere else. Like, the money comes from the fans. I want the fans to be as happy as possible. And I feel this way, so I can only imagine what, like, diehard fans feel like. I'm exhausted. Like, I am no longer, after reading that Passan article, I'm not going day to day. And I became like this with the NBA. I'm not living day to day with your updates and your leaks. Just when you come back, or if you're not coming back, I'll be in or out. I mean, I'll watch if you come back, and if you don't, I just won't. But I'm not, my level of like anxiety of when they're going to come back and excitement, like that's just gone. I don't know, and I know you love baseball. Like, I've tapped out.
No, I mean, look, my thing with them is they're constantly trying to get us to pick a side. And to your point, I'm on neither side. Now, the fact is, if we really dug in and you really sat back, you go, okay, whose side should you be on? Maybe you should be on the player side, but that's irrelevant. Like when baseball, when they had a strike in the early 90s, the whole sport suffered. Not just the owners, not just the players, the whole sport. When Sosa and McGuire had the home run chase, the whole sport benefited, the players and the owners. When they, as a sport, had their steroid scandal, the ones that the players participated in, the ones that the owners ignored, they as a sport suffered. Part of this deal is like, look, I'm rooting for both of you to figure it out and get along and have a business. Like, your job is to figure it out between the two of you, not to fight over who fans should support more. Like, I'm not into supporting one side, guys. Your job is, as a sport, to figure it out together. And they've always had the most problems. Well, I don't care. I don't care what you do. I don't care who wins or who loses. And by the way, to your point on fan, you're not going to get fans to cry about, oh, you're only getting 40% of a $20 million. Maybe it's not fair. I don't know. I don't know what the owners are making. Neither do you. You say they make more than they say. Your job is to work together and figure it out. Like, at the end of the day, if me and you had a problem over revenue splitting of this podcast, people who love the podcast could pick a side. But if we're not putting out a podcast, at the end, they're just not getting the product. So it doesn't matter who they root for, who they agree with. Call Her Daddy just got back on the podcast. They just found it. Like, you know what? We're rid of you. We're back. It's just, I don't care how you do it. I just know
Haberman's had some time on his hands over quarantine.
I'm just not rooting for either one of you. Like, your job, you guys are in this together. Your job is to work together.
I think you hit it on the head, is that, listen, if you really dove into the details, there's a large possibility that the owners are probably fucking them a little bit, right? And just, if you get into the nitty-gritty details, because I think the casual fan would be like, well, Bryce Harper, Manny Machado, Max Scherzer, all the guys that are the loudest. I guess Manny's not, but you know what I mean. The Verlanders, how are they getting screwed? Like, they're part of some of the greatest contracts in the history of humankind. Like, that's like Bob Iger money. You know, they're making like $30, $40 million a year. And like you said, I get it, Max, and I think you are a player that, like most casual sports fans, once they watch you play, like, I like that fucking guy, right? He's just one of those guys. Like, that's a type player. I think Max Scherzer is a good example of. He's been pretty outspoken on this.
Yeah, he's been good.
If you just watch him, and he's well thought out. And if you just watch him pitch, you go, we always say this. All any fan wants in their athlete to think, like, you know what, win or lose, especially with their good players, like, this guy couldn't give a shit anymore. Like, he's all his chips are in the middle of the table, and Max is like that. But it's like, Max, you're not going to get much sympathy. It's like, well, listen, my $33 million, it's got to be 17.6. It's got to be exactly 50%. I will not take the 12.4 of the prorated 82 games. Like, you're just not going to get much sympathy right now, because before, when strikes have happened, sometimes I forget, like, a strike is when the players leave. When I was in the NFL and we had the lockout, that was the owners say you can't show up. So I think sometimes we just throw them both out, like they're kind of one in the same. Right. And it gets back to the fan. I don't think the fan has that much time. When we got the craziest 3 months, you could argue, of our lifetime, just in terms of everything shut down, 40 million people on the streets, to really break it down, like, what is really going on? Like, that ain't happening right now. And every other sport guy is just back in some form or fashion. Like, you think NASCAR right now, ideally, I don't even know where they're racing in Atlanta. I would imagine Georgia's been lifted their shit a month and a half ago. They probably could have pushed the envelope and got some people there.
Lift your shit.
But they're just racing. So even if you can't have people there, I flip on Fox today and there's Harvick and Truex Jr. and Kyle Busch. They're just racing.
By the way, my favorite name is Martin Truex Jr. Couldn't pick him out of a lineup. Wouldn't know him if he knocked on my front door.
One thing I've noticed, Truex just looking Jr. up at the leaderboard. I don't think you call it that in racing. whatever it's considered,
You don't
the top 10.
It's not a leaderboard?
Well, yeah, maybe it is. So the leaderboard.
Who's got pole
and
position?
This is the thought
got the
Harvick
pole?
does right now.
But
But the pole is where you start, right?
No.
And I think if you're looking at the PGA, like who's going to be good, and this probably speaks to the NBA, whether you have a layoff, it actually probably works more in a layoff. The best players could probably really separate in a layoff, right? Because their advantage of they're just better. So your advantage sometimes as like the Harvick, Truex Jr., Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, and Jimmy Johnson are 5 out of the top 6 right now, and they've been racing for a couple weeks or whatever. But you just look, I bet on the PGA Tour, when the dust settles these next couple weeks.
You just think the most talented guys are going to be winning.
Yeah, like it's like
not to give away your DraftKings lineup, but
no, but I actually didn't approach it like that. I might have to go rechange.
I took one, but
you read articles sometimes like could the Lakers be in trouble and like could Milwaukee get a weird series? Probably not. Like Giannis should just kick everyone's ass when they come back. LeBron should just kick everyone's ass.
The teams who can rely on one guy to just dominate.
And it probably speaks when we start talking about football because none of this stuff happened all off season. Maybe it won't have that much of an impact at all on football just because everyone's kind of been the same. It's not like anyone was really able to practice. Maybe it doesn't parallel as much as the other sports that were already going, right, that had to stop.
Yeah, those might be a little more dependent on, do you have a bunch of guys coming back? Like your team.
The schemes stay the same.
You don't have one.
Your quarterback, been starting quarterback for a while. It'll be a sad moment for the history of their sport. It was once in our lifetime called legitimately, and no one argued it, the American pastime. It wasn't like, well, it's like football. It was just football was big when we were growing up, and it was like baseball is the American pastime. It's no longer the case. I think football currently clearly is. I don't know if it's America's pastime. It's like what we watch and talk about.
It's America's current time, yeah.
Are what Americans like to, spend money and sit on their couch and watch right now is football. But I think baseball guy is not going to play. If they don't play this year, they were 2 years away because after next year, they had to get a new CBA. How would that not be really ugly after this debacle? You could just be looking at a league that's spiraling out of control in the sense of all over, $1 billion here, $1 billion there, which, I mean, is a shitload of money, but could you guys just meet in the middle for the love of God and just get this figured out? It really, it shows you the more money you make sometimes at just historic levels, right? Let's say you and I were both making $5 on this podcast. It's pretty easy to figure shit out because there's not that much money on the line. But if I said in 6 months we're both making $5 million on this podcast, maybe we butt heads over some shit. Just like it's a lot easier to deal with each other, and hell, they were having issues in 94 when the money wasn't even close. So like you said, they have a history of butting heads, where I think football probably is the best example. Now they have things going for them in terms of short career spans. Money's not guaranteed. It's a lot. It doesn't parallel the business models. But they were able to get on the same page for as ugly as it could have been. It really wasn't, right? They got a CBA done relatively pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I think baseball kind of in a scary time if you are a baseball fan. Like, it's not just this year, but just they have a new CBA they got to figure out. Well, it's just kind of down a slippery slope.
Yeah, and to me the worst part is not what could be the downside, but the missed upside. Right? Like here is as bad.
What if I told you opening day was in 2.5 weeks, Dodgers, Giants,
and you had this condensed schedule, and there was less off days, and you were playing doubleheaders, and like all of a sudden you were doing this.
ESPN was going to have your games on every night just because they needed something to play.
The one thing that your sport misses, just because the world has changed, is like this nightly urgency, and all of a sudden, through a horrible circumstance, you're gifted this opportunity to just change because you have to. Because there's no other choice, and it just falls in your lap, and people are dying for sports. It's like, oh, yeah, cool, and then you just go.
I'll be honest, guy. If they don't play, I'm not the type guy to say they've lost me because I mean whenever they'll be back, I'll pay attention, but they will lose a piece of me while I'll lose some respect for this unreal opportunity. And that to me probably falls a little bit more on the owners. I don't expect the players to even think like that.
Right.
They're getting, especially the highly paid guys, because it doesn't matter. To me, the owners, this is where you guys deserve for your league to get in major trouble in the near future if you couldn't realize everything, like you just said, that you missed out on. You had an opportunity at minimum like 30 days yourself of just like, fuck, Kershaw's on tonight, ESPN primetime Wednesday. There ain't shit else on, right?
And even if we're getting to a point where it's not to yourself, where you just have a consumer that's just starved, and maybe you don't have.
Maybe you had a couple kids, guy. Who knows?
Yeah, it's
a money.
As someone
all about money.
As someone who loves baseball, right? Like really has always loved. Like it was my first favorite sport. I wore a baseball uniform for like 3 years straight. Just this pinstripe thing. My mom had to wash it every night or every few days, whatever. Like I just love baseball. And I root for the sport. Like I want the sport to maintain what it once was, or at least get somewhere close, or be in the conversation. I love when people are just talking about the divisional races in September. Like I love that stuff. I'm nostalgic for it. But I also recognize it's just not what it used to be. And I'll be mad at them for not helping themselves at a time when they needed to help themselves.
You know what? One thing
I'll still
I
watch
think
as much baseball. Like I won't. But
one thing I think is a little shocking.
It'll be harder to stand up for them. That's like I've always done.
Yeah, I agree. Is that, and maybe it's a negotiation ploy, and their agents and the players' union are pushing them to keep quiet. But I do feel like if this situation, let's say it was the NFL, and the other sports were coming back, and for whatever reason the NFL were at an impasse money-wise, but it was relatively close. It feels like the Mahomes and the Rodgers and like Brady or I'm trying to think of Richard Sherman, whoever would be like, God, I miss playing football. And again, I'm not trying to be naive. There's money on the line. I'm just shocked that we haven't seen many guys just tweet like, fuck, I miss playing baseball. It's like, where's their passion? And I follow a decent amount of baseball players but just a story like, listen, I know I can't play until we figure this out. It's out of my control, but fuck, I miss tying on the cleats. I miss getting in the box 4 times a game.
Who was it? Do you remember like a month ago, was it Joey Gallo? Somebody who had set up like a batting net on the balcony of their condo?
No.
Like that, it was just cool. It was like, look at this guy. Or maybe it was like I think it was on the balcony of his condo. It must have been like
I'll say this for
15th floor of
Bryce.
a building.
You follow Bryce on Instagram, he'll be in the cage.
Yeah.
It's like, at least I think the guy likes to hit.
Bryce being good is good because Bryce is baseball's biggest star. Most famous.
Yeah, probably.
Right? I mean,
right. He's a big deal.
You mentioned Richard Sherman. You and I both watched. We did a couple videos about a couple things that Kyle Shanahan said in his meeting with reporters. I guess it was Thursday, right, on Zoom.
Yeah.
We did a couple.
Like the days are all the same.
Yeah, I know. It was Thursday, and he talked about Jimmy a lot, but he also spent most of at least the first half of the Zoom conversation talking about racial issues and Black Lives Matter and kind of his thoughts, and he had some incredible answers. He got asked a question about what's he telling his kids, and I thought, that's kind of a tough spot for him to be in, but he gave, as I was watching, but he gave a really great, thoughtful. This isn't Bob Lang didn't have to hand him bullet points on how to handle yourself. I hate to call it a test, but every time he gets a chance to lead. You remember back when we used to talk about him like, he's a great X and O guy. We know he's a great play caller, but is he head coach material? Is he too abrasive, or does he know how to lead? Is he too young? It wasn't that long ago. I mean, those questions are long gone.
I think it's really, really impressive for a younger coach to be that authentic, right, and be that comfortable in such a weird time. You would say a lot of coaches can get into a situation, even veteran guys. I'd say the NFL probably always has, but definitely now has a lot of big personalities and older guys that are very, very comfortable in their own skin, right? I mean, guys that have just had a lot of success. Even Belichick, like, can handle on any topic, or Andy or Sean Payton or Pete Carroll. But I do think for younger guys, these situations, you're just, to me, it'd be easy to be a little insecure about certain things. And
especially if you have less equity in your own locker room, right?
Yeah, and I actually think he is one of the most self-secure guys in the league, despite now he has a unique resume, right? Football is just a way of life in his family. He was around it at a really high level. And then he legitimately, and we see it a lot now, and you and I talk about it with the coaching hires, like a lot of guys actually don't have that much experience. Back in the day, like the Mike Holmgrens when he gets the Packer job. Well, he had been Bill Walsh's right-hand guy for like 10 years, or Mike Shanahan, offensive play caller, forever. And these guys, it took them forever. Now it's like 1 year, boom, Matt LaFleur, head coach. Kyle Shanahan spent 10 years as an offensive coordinator. So just that alone, that was kind of old school. So you just had been in a position of just been through a lot of things, had also bounced around the league and seen a lot of things. I actually think he doesn't probably get the credit for God, he has kind of been around, right?
Yeah.
He's just been with this guy, been with that guy, saw this, coached this guy. Sometimes that really, really helps. And I think sometimes we don't ever discuss that. I'll say this for Saleh. Seattle. Then he went to Jacksonville. Now he comes to 49ers. You go, okay, if he's, Kyle's DC for 5 years, he's done some things, right? It wasn't just a one-and-done guy. Now, LaFleur, I saw he made some, he's an impressive guy. Right? It's just his experience level is nowhere near the level, let's say, and even Sean McVay. Now, he's been the head coach the same length as Kyle. But it just, I'm with you. Just watching his words, you're like, God. And then also you hear him talk. He's like, well, we got a Muslim coach. We have a black coordinator. We have a lesbian on staff. Half of our coaches are minorities. And it doesn't feel like he's forcing the minor. He's just I just knew these guys. I would work with Hightower in Washington. I knew Saleh from the Houston Texans. I knew this guy from, and it's God, you're just hiring guys that you think are good coaches.
Maybe that's part of it, just because he's been around the sport. His network is maybe bigger than somebody who is his age would normally have.
Definitely.
Right. And he, because he was a coordinator for a long time, I guess he would be kind of in charge of some other assistants to some degree.
Yeah.
On the offensive
especially
staff.
when you work for defensive head coaches, as he did with Pettin and then Dan Quinn, you get a lot of autonomy maybe to hire at minimum 2 or 3 offensive coaches, right? So he's hired guys before.
I think
that can't hurt.
I think it's one of the many benefits. That's not it's not unfair that he has this advantage, right? When it's did he get chances because he's Mike Shanahan's son? Why? What is different about him because he's Mike Shanahan's son? I think maybe this is one of those things, right? Because he's been around the game, he's been around locker rooms, he's been around head coaches, he's been around players, he's been around coaches for so long. He's just so comfortable that what he feels is right is right. We've said it. I think it's one of probably the mantra. I say it all the time, and not even in the context of the podcast or of sports, but there's just no. I say it a lot to.
Think about this guy.
College broadcasters who ask me. There's just so much. You can't replace experience.
He did cut Kaepernick, and that's something. And not saying it wasn't the right move, but that's not something that really stays with him in a situation that it kind of feels like it could.
Right.
If it wasn't clearly it would not have fit what he wanted to do, and it never felt. And people don't hold him to that because it wasn't he didn't cut him or not be interested in him because of everything that was going on. Clearly, I don't think he would care. He doesn't care, right? I think there's going to be a large percentage of players kneeling this fall. Definitely early on in the season.
Yeah, and that can lead us to Drew Brees. You want to get to Brees?
Yeah.
DraftKings first, though.
Yes.
So you see it at the bottom on the YouTube, and kind of an update on Brees. This isn't a rehash on Brees, but you see it on the YouTube. Very simple. PGA Tour's back. Full week of golf ahead of us. And the big cash prizes are out there to be won. DraftKings, the official daily fantasy game of the PGA Tour, is putting you in the center of the action with a free shot at a $1 million top prize with your first deposit.
Okay, here's the key. You just download the app. If you're listening, you don't have the app. I was once like that. Haberman was once like that. We downloaded the app, use the promo code HAM, and it's easy to play. We're going to have the links in the YouTube. The link will be in the podcast. We'll tweet out the link. It's very easy. You just pick 6 golfers. You get $50,000. Every golfer has a value. Rory's like 11. You get some guys for like 8, and you just put together a team. And it won't allow you to go over, and you can go on. It's really simple. It could not be any easier. The more red numbers they have on the leaderboard, the closer you'll be to winning some green. Rack up points for pars, birdies, finishing position. It's fun. I mean, I actually can't wait, guy. I'm dead serious. Part of just sports back, but that we got this game. Download the DraftKings app now. If you don't have it, download the app now. Use the promo code HAM. Get a free shot at $1 million top prize. Your first deposit. The promo code is HAM. Get a free shot at $1 million with your first deposit. We also got games out on DraftKings. You can find it in the links. And come play with us.
Minimum $5 deposit required. Deposit requires a 25-time playthrough. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details.
Nailed it.
Zoop, zoop. So, Drew Brees. I struggled last week for sure, just in terms of like, what should I say? What should I tweet or Instagram or not how I should feel. Just was there a value in saying something? And one of the reasons I struggled with it is because I didn't want to be saying what everybody else was saying, even though a lot of people were nailing it. And a lot of people with much better perspectives, a.k.a. non-white people, were giving a lot of great perspective. And I didn't want to be, even though it was authentic, like how I feel is authentic, I didn't want to join the chorus of just people saying it maybe because it's kind of the CYA, like I better get it out there on the record that I'm on the good side, and if anyone ever checks my Twitter, then they'll know that. So that was the part I struggled with. And I don't know if other people felt that way. Maybe people did. You and I have talked about this a long time. Like in many ways, I think there's this big world outside of social media and outside of Twitter and outside of Instagram that it's easy if you're on those platforms a lot, like I am, like you are, like probably everybody watching this is, YouTube. It's easy to forget that. And so my struggle with tweeting something was like, how do I say something that is useful to people that I don't agree with or that disagree with me, that other people aren't saying, right? Okay, I could just hashtag Black Lives Matter. That's valuable, but I guess, I don't know. I mean, I think we saw this with Colin, and this is what I kept thinking about is like, we were doing 2 hours of radio a day, so I didn't feel constrained then to like, I better tweet something. We just had 2 hours. We just talked about it every day. We got it all out. It was this ongoing conversation. And this felt a little different to me this time around. I don't know why. But the one thing I always go back to, I remember I loved history class as a kid. I was not good at math, science, but like history, the writing stuff, I loved all that. And I always, like, one of the things that stuck with me as a kid was just opening a history book and seeing some of when you were learning about civil rights movements, and you'd have these pictures of like rallies. And I always remember looking at these pictures of people who were anti-civil rights movements thinking, like, did they have any idea they would end up in a history book and on the wrong side of history? Like, do they have any clue? Did they care? Did they think that would be a possibility? That always stuck with me as a kid. Like, just no matter what, even if you don't quite get it, just if you think you know which is the right side of history, be on the right side of history. And I'd say civil rights is something that's consistently been pretty clear what the right side of history is going to be. One thing, you remember when Muhammad Ali died, how many people came out and said, this is awesome that people are revering and have revered Muhammad Ali. But that is not the life Muhammad Ali lived when he was in his prime protesting years.
He was getting crushed.
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 Tommy Smith and John Carlos at the 68 games, right? The guys that put their fist in the air on the medal stand. One of the things they were protesting was the treatment of Muhammad Ali. One of the things they were protesting was, I didn't realize this, John, until I went back and read some quotes. Tommy Smith said one of the things they were protesting was a lack of black assistant coaches. So they were protesting big picture
in
things.
in the game.
Yeah, just the Olympic team.
Yeah.
Right? So they were protesting lack of access to good housing and lack of access to good colleges and the treatment of this was 68. Ali was started in 67. I think was the first of his 3 years they didn't box. But one of the things was just lack of black coaches. And that was 1968. Here we are in 2020. And one of the things we're talking about is lack of black coaches. So last week is awesome. The continuation.
Well, it's one of the number one, wouldn't you say, every single year feels like for a long time in the NFL.
Yeah.
It comes up every time. And the numbers, Kyle talked about it.
He did. But it applies in college football too. And it doesn't really get talked about as much in college football. But so I guess part of me was like, last week, this week, all that stuff is awesome. I hope it maintains. I hope it carries on. I hope it's not, okay, we did our part. We said our piece. Now, whatever. We're on to the next cause until something else happens. And I don't know. It does feel kind of different to me. It feels like maybe it'll be more impactful long term. And this is where Drew Brees comes in. Drew can play a really critical role for the NFL from a business standpoint. Because clearly, would you agree with this? The NFL has put itself in a position that they, as a league, are going to have to handle this season, and like you said, protests from players differently than they handled Colin. Do you agree with that? Like by all the teams tweeting out, by all the teams tweeting out Black Lives Matter, by it becoming.
You see today the Denver Broncos, like 60 members and their entire coaching staff was like leading the Denver rally.
No,
the
I did
protest.
not see that.
Yeah, I mean Von Miller, to Fangio, to Pat Shurmur, to Drew Lock. I mean, I think they had like 50 players, coaches, and I think the NFL, a lot of players and NBA players have been all over these rallies.
It's become more acceptable acceptable. Colin was like it, right? A couple other guys did it, but they were extreme outliers that kneeled during the anthem. Now we've got people. Now sometimes you might say it's for a photo op, whatever, but you got police officers kneeling with, like, it's just, You're right. It's going to happen more. And by saying the things the NFL has said, which they have, they didn't get much credit for here in the last few days, nor should they. These are just tweets on Twitter. Like,
people are talking shit about it.
Yeah. Well, based on their resume, right?
Yeah.
Because they haven't really stood for this stuff.
Well, I think it's twofold. I think Colin Kaepernick, I don't think it's disputable, blackballed, kicked out of the league, right? But I do think the NFL, you could kneel. Kenny Stills knelt forever. Eric Reed's played in the league. Now, he was out for a quick second, but then he came back, never stopped kneeling. It's not, it was just, Colin, I think for them, symbolized business losses. Like that to me, when I think Kaepernick and I think the league and that their interaction was less about, and I understand the media loves acting like they're anti-black or whatever. To me, they're not. It was just simply the ratings started tanking, and the ratings are their lifeblood. So like they live on the ratings more than any. Like the NBA doesn't seem to care.
You're saying if it had just been controversial, but the ratings hadn't gone down, Colin would
or
have
had gone up.
Yeah, or gone.
I think maybe I'm ignorant, maybe I'm naive. I think the ratings dipping, like a legit, tangible people stop watching. It's why my Drew Brees comment. Listen, I didn't agree with this comment because I don't personally care, and I think it's pretty clear at this point in time. I would say most Americans, in some form or fashion, have a family member, even if they've never met him. If it was World War II, an older that was a part of the military situation. But I think this is where the NFL is ultimately probably nervous. They can't say this. There are people, Guy, and I meet people, or I guess I've met people that have said this to me, like, I stopped watching the NFL after Kaepernick, or I won't watch it if they nail. I don't relate to that guy, but they do exist. Like that isn't disputable, right?
Yeah. And
tend to be a little older, I would say, but still,
might be watching this video.
There.
Like, it's easy to see your tweets. Like because there's a lot of them. You tweet about Colin, you'll get those replies from real people, not from like people just stirring shit up. I mean, but for me, having always believed that, like, and having lived in other countries, being born in another country, living on an Air Force base in another country, the most basic, or to me, one of the most, not to me, to America, one of the most basic tenets of the country is you have a right to protest, even if people disagree. And so this is where Brees comes in from a business standpoint. Drew apologizes, right? He does the handshake. He should have gone with a black and white cookie, but he goes with the handshake. Drew, come on. And people go, oh, it's not a great apology. He's getting crushed. He does the team phone call. Then he comes back. And I thought when he tweeted at Donald Trump to say, hey,
clearly they got that together because remember Sean Payton had canceled Zoom meetings all offseason, remember?
Yep.
So that must have been an ad lib on the fly.
Yes.
Maybe Drew goes to Sean,
said,
can you get everyone on a Zoom?
Yep.
Yeah.
But when he tweeted at the president, what he became potentially for the NFL is somebody who can say, and this is his job now, is going to be to convince the people who think that kneeling for the anthem is disrespectful to the military or to the police, or his job is going to be to convince those people that he changed his mind for real, that he didn't come out with that most recent statement because he was bullied into it, because it's PR, because he's just got to protect his money. He's got to convince those people, I changed my mind. And the reason I changed my mind is because I listened to what my teammates had to say, and what I heard was that their kneeling had nothing to do with my two grandfathers. It had nothing to do with that. It's not a disrespect for my grandfathers. And it's an eye-opening thing. Like, I remember Colin's protest was the first time, as someone who had supported his protest and supported the right, like, all that stuff I've always been all in on, but in an ignorant way, it had never occurred to me that someone would look at the flag and it wouldn't represent to them what it represented to me. And now I think about that every anthem, every game. I've been to 1,000 games since then, right? Call games. And I just think about it. I think about, there's somebody in here who's standing with maybe with their hand over their heart, and that flag doesn't mean the same thing to them because they've had a different life. And so Drew, from a business standpoint, the NFL is going to need Drew Brees, right? Because if players are kneeling and the president's telling people boycott the sport, Brees is going to have to kind of take, all right, Drew, you got this fight over here. We need you to handle this.
I had kind of forgotten, since you just said that, he was kind of pushing a little of that, wasn't he? Donald, let's not watch the NFL.
Yeah.
The NFL's anti-American, and that became a problem for the NFL.
It felt like that was one of the big reasons the NFL had a problem.
You were right. I think Drew Brees can be I hadn't thought about it till you told me this before we started the pod. Like, that's actually genius. It might have been one of your greatest takes ever. Like, he could be their kind of guy. Because, again, like, if you are, like, I think most people with common sense understand at this point in time, if you've just listened, what Colin Kaepernick was trying to do. He said it over and over. He even said from the jump. And everything becomes so political. We've seen it with Corona. We saw it with Kaepernick. When Kaepernick was asked, because that in 2016, that was leading up to the election. So you're anti-Donald, you're pro-Hillary. He's like, no, I'm anti. I think they're all out against it, right? I don't have this isn't a political party statement.
Right. He didn't vote. I'm not going to vote.
I'm not going to vote because, and you know what? Of everything he's ever done, listen, the kneeling and with the Dave Boyer, what it became was intense, and what he's had to deal with, whether you like him or not, like it's pretty insane. Like what his life became.
That he went
right.
Yeah, that he went through with it and kept going through with it.
But just the way everything played out, you know, the guy that had such a promising career to just be out of the league and never get another shot and getting blackballed, and then he sued the league and whatever. But there is another fraction of people, and I think sometimes, and it definitely becomes this way on Twitter, it's like, well, if you don't believe like us, you're a fucking moron. Well, those people do believe that, just like you believe something. So there has to be some open dialogue, which clearly doesn't happen on social media, where a guy like Drew Brees, like when you say Tom Brady, when you talk about like the flag analogy, when you call games or you go to the anthem, I saw Arian Foster said it this week, and you've heard a lot of players and black people say it over the years, like since Colin. It's clearly right. Like when I look at the flag, I see America, the Marines, my grandparents, us kicking ass in World War II, saving the world. Like, we SEAL Team 6. We're a bunch of bad motherfuckers. Capitalism, America. It's been great to me and my family. It enables me to talk into a mic and make money. But I think since we talked last, On Wednesday, I had an issue. I think we might have mentioned it on a YouTube. Maybe I don't even know. But I had an issue with a cop where I was parked in a wrong spot in Walnut Creek about going into an ATM, and he was kind of aggressive right off the top, and I wasn't aggressive back, but I just was like, yeah, man, I'm good. My car's fine.
You were stating your case, right?
Yeah, and he's like, no, your car's not fine. And then I realized, like, this is exactly what they're talking about. I'm like, my bad, bro. I'll move the car right now. I'm like, I'll take my card out and not even get any money. He's like, no problem. And it's like, you just start realizing, like, not everyone gets that treatment.
Right.
Like, that's privileged white guy right there. You know? And I didn't even, and it hit you after, like, God, this is exactly what they're talking about. And I think Drew Brees can kind of be in the middle because when you say Drew Brees, I would say before, what was that, Wednesday or Thursday, whenever he kind of got thrown into the fire after that interview, he was universally liked. Black, white, sports people, non-sports people. You just say Drew Brees, you were going to get a positive interaction. You were at a dinner party, you were at a game, wherever. You'd be like, yeah, I like that Drew Brees. Yeah, it was going to be close, if not a 100% positive reviews. Where even Tom Brady, you're going to have a percentage of people think he's a cheater, percentage of people think he's a weirdo. Like, I'd say Drew Brees in the league of older players, elite player, elite guy, helped save Katrina. Remember, he donated his salary to Katrina. It just feels like he stood up for an area that when you say Louisiana and the Saints, like, it feels like he's kind of been a leader of a black community. And that's what kind of was so crazy about the whole thing. It's why that my take on it was, I didn't know eventually Donald would get involved, even though I should have. But even before the Donald tweet, it was like, Drew Brees is a super high-level guy. He has been respected by every fucking person. And even after his apology, right away, what happened? And this is, you and I had talked about this last week. It's like, there is some nuance on Twitter. It's just quick segments and, 240 characters. He has spent 4 straight years with Michael Thomas every day. So when Michael Thomas, 24 hours later, is like, I respect him, that's my quarterback. Of course, because he likes him, because they spend time with him. He knows his true character. Drew Brees has spent years developing his true character, and now he actually is in this position, it almost feels, to kind of bring communities together, which is not going to be easy because all it takes is one divisive level tweet from Donald, which could happen at any moment. Any moment. And once the kneeling thing comes back, which clearly I think is going to come back, just a guesstimate here on June 7th, in full force. Like, it wouldn't shock me if, like, teams are kneeling, right? And the president will get involved. Then can Drew? I don't know. It's going to be. It might even be too big for him to even handle.
And the NFL might have to take it this time because they've kind of gone down this road of, hey, we are on the side.
Well, there's only one
change.
league that doesn't let you. There's only one league that, by their bylaws, doesn't let you kneel. Like, it's not like the NFL didn't mandated you stand, right?
Right. I just don't think you ever felt like the NFL was like the players who knelt never felt they were supported by their league, right? Which is the irony. The NBA players all feel supported by their league.
Exactly. Even though they're not allowed to kneel technically, even though it'd be probably harder to kneel on the hardwood floor. But I think the NFL, and I go back to, I think it was less racial and more just, as sad as it sounds, simply dollars and cents, and they thought they would lose dollars and cents. I think they're pro their players in the sense of they will support them. Now, you'd say, like, well, the guaranteed contract.
Yeah.
You could counter my argument.
I don't know that they particularly care one way or the other about their players. I don't know. I don't think they would act. I think they just want to make money.
Okay, they're indifferent. That's why if I told you that kneeling would be indifferent toward their business, wouldn't affect them at all, I don't even think twice about it. I think why they get so negative on it because they thought it was going to cost them a lot of money on television.
And the counter right to that would be, well, hey, there are some things bigger than you. You guys are you making less money is still you being filthy rich. Some things are bigger than that. And now, based on the way they've operated, they've kind of put themselves in a position where it's going to be hard for them to go back on it.
They don't have a choice now. They don't have a choice.
And so they're going to need Drew from that because, again, I'll go back to what I said to start. For me,
I think you're gonna see coaches and stuff kneel this year.
And I think
I'll give you a guy hopefully this means
that the way this gets interpreted is different than when Colin did it by the people who maybe they are able to. I don't know that Colin changed well, maybe he did. But
I'll tell you a guy there's going to be some pressure on to do something a little different this time around. It's going to be Mike Tomlin. Because remember, the Pittsburgh Steelers refused to go on the field. Because here's another thing. It
Villanueva, right? He came out of the tunnel.
And Tomlin stood right next to him.
That's right.
Remember, standing by himself on the sideline by himself. And I actually think Tomlin would get a lot of heat if he did something. But remember, a lot of it was probably, I think the league office just always takes the heat in the league. A lot of it, remember, was kind of the teams. Even Mark Davis had said like he was anti-it. A lot of coaches said they were anti-it. Because again, at the time, 16, 17, it did feel immediately, despite them saying it was different, it was anti-flag. Even though they kept saying it's not anti-flag, or it's not anti-military, anti-military. And the league is so interwoven with the military, and a lot of owners clearly were like, don't want to be viewed as anti-military because they knew their fans. I just wonder.
Well, because
I don't think it's going to be any less of a slippery slope for some of these teams that aren't going to want to get involved with it. But it's just, I don't know what they do.
Yeah.
Besides, just allow their guys to do it.
Allow it to happen. Yeah. I was like a block up from me. There's this house that puts its flag out sometimes, and underneath it, sometimes a lot of times you'll see the American flag, and underneath it you'll see like the POW flag.
Yeah.
This house has the American flag, and underneath it they have a San Francisco Giants flag.
Yeah.
But it's not just like an orange flag with the Giants logo. It's the American flag in black and orange with black and orange stripes, and the Giants logo is where the stars are normally.
Yeah.
I think that being sold for $30 is far more disrespectful to the flag than that. I shouldn't even compare it to whether it's more or less. If we just made a line of things, disrespectful or respectful, that's not respectful. I don't think.
I
and it never really bugged me until a few years ago, and I'm like, this is so hypocritical. What?
Yeah, I think everything.
You can't stand for social justice, but you can put your logo instead of the state stars and change the colors?
I think most of the people that get worked up, it all kind of gets back to money. It's the one thing I've gained a ton of respect for the peaceful protesters over the last week, because there is just, for the Broncos, I saw Russell Westbrook kind of just going out walking. Like, that's just, it's not about money. Especially, like, Russell was not, like, taking selfies or anything. He's just out there walking. No camera or anything. Now, he got pictures when he's up on, because everyone grabs him. They want him to speak. He led the walk in Compton, right? Or, like, Klay and Steph show up to the one in Oakland. Like, or the Broncos show up to the one downtown Denver. Like, to me, there is just some sweat equity there. It's easy to tweet. And I thought Jamie Foxx said it really well, like, I think on Thursday, like, hey, celebrities, can you stop tweeting about this? Like, leave your big-ass house and come out here and walk. Like, that's the whole point of this thing. And that's where I think back to what you originally opened up with this. I always struggle, like, the social media thing. I'm sorry, guy. You and I grew up with social media. We were inundated in it. And I still think it's really hollow, even though it does have powerful abilities. I still think there is stuff to picking up the phone, go on a fucking march, put your body somewhere, stop tweeting. Because the easiest thing to do is to tweet something that everyone else is tweeting from the comforts of your own home.
Make a donation. Put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah.
But it's this weird thing, because it's like I've been in it since, when did I get on Twitter? 2005 maybe? Was Twitter around in 05?
No.
That's too soon. No.
Like 9 or 10.
Yeah, 09.
11,
I think it was like August of 09, but I didn't tweet till like 10. And so I do think so much of it is hollow, but I also saw a lot of stuff that I thought was really powerful, and read a lot of stuff that was really powerful. So
100%.
I'm not saying, and
I
know you're not saying that
I know there's
either.
a balance.
I just felt like, okay, I agree with a lot of what I'm seeing. I don't want to join the choir. How can I say something different? And I don't know that I even found the right thing to say today, but I did. I don't know. That's just what I kind of woke up thinking about today. Actually, in the middle of the night was thinking about
I think your overall point, though, whether he is the guy that kind of binds everyone together or he's going to be someone that people are going to look for, I think Drew Brees is going to play a big role in 2020 fall with the NFL.
From a business standpoint, the league's going to need him. Yeah.
And clearly, I think and this is why I had nothing but faith that he would rebound out of this, my motto is just high-level people do high-level shit. and he's just too high level of a person to not like to just people are like, is he just gonna be silent? No, he is going to come back in some way. I didn't know exactly how he was gonna do it, but it was no way he was just gonna be from this point moving forward. Drew Brees, scumbag, loser, ignorant, just gonna be an ugly year with the Saints. Like, yeah, that ain't happening.
I like your high level quote because that reminds me of the story that Chappelle always tells about Kanye, young Kanye. Like before Kanye was big, you know that story?
Was it like, I'm Kanye, I do dope shit?
Yeah, well, he's on the phone. He's like, what? He's hanging out with Chappelle while they edit Chappelle's show. And someone calls him and he's like, oh, I'm hanging with Chappelle. And he's like, yeah, my life is dope and I do dope shit. Like when Chappelle was at his height. I would say my ultimate point is, and this is where I think Colin gets a lot of credit, is just now, today, there's still a lot to work for, but it's easier to say Black Lives Matter, to march, to donate. It's easier for the NFL to handle it as a league, right? It's easier to handle it today.
Yeah.
And someone has to be first, and it's usually not easy
You're right
for
there.
that person, right? It wasn't easy for Ali. When Tommy Smith and John Carlos came back, Musburger wrote an article, he was a writer at the time, calling them dishonorable. Not unpatriotic. He called them dishonorable. Basically, called them
I would have
dumb.
said his approval. I would have said his approval rating at the time probably
was
in that
really
quote
high.
went high.
And one thing that Tommy Smith said, he's like, it wasn't even. It was like it was a human rights salute, is what we were doing. And actually, the third guy on the podium is a white guy from Australia, and he didn't.
What was the event?
The Olympics.
But I'm saying, what was like
Track
their
and field.
event? Like 400 or the mile.
Yeah,
or
I'm not.
something? Probably
Yeah,
not
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure. But the Australian guy, he didn't put his fist up, but he wore a patch, and he got, from what I read, like for the rest of his life in Australia. And certainly when he returned, he was not like welcome back as a social rights activist. But just because a law gets passed, just because slavery gets abolished, or schools get desegregated, or you don't have to pass a literacy test to vote. Just because a law gets passed doesn't mean the work's done. And I think ideally one day, like the flag doesn't stand for what we want it to stand for until it stands for that for everybody. So we haven't reached our self-actualization, the top of the pyramid. Like we're still getting there. And I hope all the work that so many people did is a step in that direction. And I think that unlike the last time, maybe the NFL can actually, we don't need more people who agree to agree. We need people to see it differently. And that's in 2020, just one of the hardest things to get anybody to do. Everything's a fight.
That to me, back to my point on social media, where I think sometimes it's positive stuff where things are said, and if you really read them, you're like, God, this guy's just saying this for saying it. Can also on the bad thing just make it worse and make people and drive people away.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Just because it's so divisive and so angry, and but that's probably anything.
I will always default to talking over tweeting. Always. Because I just, maybe one day, hopefully I'll be 80 and people, like my grandkids will make fun of me. Like, that's just old people think you should talk to each other. I don't know. Maybe I'll be wrong about that. But I was listening to a radio show yesterday, driving to get some food. Or maybe it was Friday. And I heard two callers. One of them said, "Did you know Colin didn't even vote? How can he be a hero?" And I wanted to tell the host, like, dude, all you have to say is, if we waited for every person to be perfect, everybody would be disqualified.
But I think Colin, where I respect him on the vote thing, he'd go, "Who the hell do you want me to vote for? I don't trust either of them."
Perfect's not
that's
the
what
right,
I respect the most about him.
For sure. But I'm saying, like, perfect. If everybody had to fit in your box for their cause to be legitimate, nobody would ever fit in everybody's box, and you would always find fault with somebody's cause. Perfect's not the right word, because it's not like he just like, fuck it. He had a reason. And then I heard a woman call and say, older woman. She's like, I used to say all lives matter, and listening to people call in and explain, I understand now. I was like, damn, okay. It kind of, for the first, that honestly, like little things, I'd kind of been just like, I think this is going to be a bunch of yelling. I don't know if it's going to change anything. And that kind of gave me a little pep. So Hopefully,
Did you see the thing? Kevin Hart tweeted it. This comedian, I think it's been going kind of viral.
Michael Che,
Is that him?
the guy from
where
SNL.
He was like, yeah, where he's
it's
like,
like matter is the bare minimum.
yeah, he's like, well, not Black Lives Better, not Black Lives are superior. We're saying Black Lives Matter. You know, it's
Like civil
you gotta
rights.
Think about it like that.
Civil.
You're like, God,
We're
he's
just asking
kinda
for
right.
civil.
I was like, God
So
damn,
good.
you put it like
I watched
that.
that.
It's like, shit.
I watched that stand up a while ago. The whole thing is incredible.
He's funny.
Michael Che is fantastic. He's one of the two SNL with the guy who's dating or married to Scarlett Johansson. Weekend Update.
He's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Is he younger?
Yeah.
Like in his early 30s or something?
Yeah, I assumed. I don't know, but younger guy. I mean, that whole bit.
like that
whole
guy.
bit was really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike Birbiglia. I watched him. The guy that briefly dates Taylor Mason in Billions.
Yeah.
He's like the VC fund guy who they're like flying cross country. They have a relationship early. Then she burns him because she gives Axe some information and it undercuts his company. You remember that guy?
What season is this?
Probably season 2 mostly. Although he popped up
Okay.
in season 3 at the big VC retreat.
Okay.
Kind of white guy, kind of,
Yeah.
as he says, he looks like somebody who starts P90X but never actually starts P90X. Anyway, it turns out if you Googled him, you'd remember him. He's a comedian.
He's funny.
So funny.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
I gotta check that guy out.
Check him out. Do you want to talk about Klay and Giannis?
Yeah, I got a quick take.
Okay, give me your Klay Giannis take.
Well, it just got thrown out there. Again, complete hypothetical. We're still 2 months away from the NBA somehow. They've waited 3 months to be 2 months away. So we're still doing a lot of hypotheticals this offseason. There are huge unknowns about money. I saw Giannis at a protest. Again, these guys, especially in the NBA, you got to be walking like even Klay, who's 6'7", got to be dramatically taller than the average guy walking these protests. Giannis is like 7 feet tall. I mean, he's just got to be like, that's fucking Giannis, especially in the area. You're like, so of course you're going to give the guy the mic. And he just said, like, I want to raise my daughter. I don't want to worry about raising my daughter when I do it here in Milwaukee. And now, again, you just kind of talk, and I don't.
But
ever
for
try to make too
NBA
much of
drama, free agency, you can definitely twist it.
So there is a good chance the NBA cap, like the NFL cap, is a revenue share. That's how they get the salary cap. So with all the lost games, depending what they make, it could go down. So his best opportunity to make by far the most amount of money could be in Milwaukee. But as we've seen, these guys are so rich. Like, if you want to go somewhere else, you're going to be so rich and you're so good, it doesn't necessarily matter. If Giannis wants to leave Milwaukee, he can leave Milwaukee. At the end of the day, sports, and I think Twitter has become like, whenever I see this, like, remember, athletes are people. No fucking shit. We're talking about trades. This is part of the deal. This is what makes sports a big deal. Trades and transactions. And guys get traded. It's part of the fucking league. I do think Klay is one of the rare guys who clearly is not a one, right? He's not like a Michael Jordan, a LeBron, a Steph. He's the two. And he's been a three, but part of that was Kevin Durant. But he's become, and he's kind of morphed into this really elite player. Like, if he's healthy, he's a lock all-star. Like, he's that, like, level two. He's not like, he had a good year this year. He got in the, he's like, if he's healthy, he's going to the all-star game. So if you're that level two, you're pretty good, right? In a Western Conference. On paper, if Klay Thompson, a number one pick or whatever, to get Giannis, because he's like, I want to go to Golden State. From a basketball standpoint, like, Giannis is way younger. He's got a chance to be like, basically like LeBron James, right? I mean, he was probably going to be the back-to-back MVP of the league, right? The first back-to-back MVP since, I don't know, Steph Curry. You got to do the deal. I do, though. My first reaction is like, I kind of want Klay to stay.
Yeah.
I enjoy watching him. And there's a level of, like, watching the Jordan documentary. It was like, when I say the Utah Jazz or Seattle Supersonics or the Houston Rockets or the New York Knicks, like, you could just name their core two or three. We all knew growing up, like, the Pacers, like, who their little group was. the Davis brothers and Reggie and Mark Jackson, or, Oakley, Mason, and Ewing, Stockton, Malone. But you could also name like 2 or 3 other, like Hornacek. They just had their kind of core groups. The NBA now is just, it feels like something me and you would play on a DraftKings. Like you're just always switching. Listen, I can watch Giannis no matter, he's always on TV anyway. Like I signed up for the Warriors for Steph and Klay.
Yeah.
Like, I like Steph and Klay.
Yeah.
So if they never win again, like I'm in for Steph and fucking Klay. So I don't want Klay to get traded for Giannis. Because call me old school, call me an idiot, whatever. I would rather have Giannis if I was starting a team than Klay Thompson. But if Steph Curry and Draymond are here, I want Klay Thompson here. That's what I sign up for as a consumer. I want to watch those guys.
Yeah, but you're not Bob Myers, right? You're not Joe Lacob. If you're in the draft, if you're in the front office,
also
meeting,
if you're also Milwaukee, like I would, like that's actually not. If I get 2 1s and Klay Thompson, a guy under contract, it's if Giannis is going to leave
need to run
anyway,
a physical.
it's pretty good.
Now, also, it's like who knows? Maybe he tells Milwaukee that's the only place I'm going to go. Every team knows that's the only place he's going to sign an extension. Milwaukee doesn't get 2 1s in Klay, right? Maybe their leverage. Who knows what their leverage would be to pay. Like he's not going somewhere.
But the Warriors would have to trade him just for salary cap purposes too, right? It'd be him or Draymond, and they would much rather have.
I'm saying the ones.
Draymond.
Yeah. You might not have to include.
So let's just say Klay Thompson,
but
and
whatever. Klay and whatever you had to do. Yeah. If we turned to you and said, all right, John, the room split 50-50, Johnny West and Bob Myers and Steve Kerr and the late Kirk and Joe, you're the tie. You got to break the tie. You'd have to say yes, trade Klay for Giannis, right?
Well, the health of my franchise.
Yeah, you're the right. You would have to say that. But I agree with you. Like to me, now I'm not. You and I are not like.
They will be immortals, guy, if they come back
and win another title.
Years. Yeah, legends. And honestly, guy, I think they can.
Like
that's
if you're
why I
a fan, if you're a fan, of course you could root for Giannis. It'd be so easy to root for Giannis. But such a big part of sports is like not just that you won, but that you did it, with like your hometown team. And when I say your hometown team, I'm talking like, your the high school, the basketball team from your local high school goes on and wins a state championship. That's cooler when it's all the kids that live in the neighborhood. Like it's just cooler when it's your guys, whoever your guys are. I'm not a Warriors fan. Like it's not what I want to be entertained. And to me, like you and I were on the same page. Durant, like of course, if you're the Warriors, you do it. But I don't know. It kind of took the drama out of the whole thing.
I agree, but part of what made Durant much more seamless is you got to keep Steph, Klay, and Draymond, right?
Yeah.
You just got to get rid of Bogut and Harrison Barnes.
And it's not like Klay is not. This is not Bumgarner on the back end or Posey on the back end, right? This guy is still.
You would think he's still got 3-4 All-Stars in him coming back off the ACL.
John,
his game should translate.
3-4. I mean, might have more.
Were you around him this year? When you called the Washington State game? Was that like this pre-corona?
Yeah, that was January. We did. Klay Thompson's jersey was retired. I called the game, and Klay came and sat at the table with us.
Remember we talked about it on the podcast after, like, how he went from, and even he's talking, the shy guy to being just in complete control of just, he's a personality now.
He has, like, seems like self-actualized, yes.
Yeah, people on Twitter just over time, and I think sometimes when I meet them and they know what I do, they're like, oh, you're a big Warriors fan. Like, well, no, I'm a Steph, Klay, Draymond guy. And I like Joe Lacob, but if you said Karl Anthony Towns and Devin Booker or James Harden were on the team, like you wouldn't find me beating the drum. Like part of my deal with them is I respect the hell out of their core guy because I've watched them. You just lived it. Like I'm a fan of those guys. And I like Giannis too. And he from every box, it feels like he checks superstardom. I mean, guy, if he's going to win potentially back-to-back MVPs at 25 years old, you'd say, could he have like 4 or 5 wins? Like he could be, his career arc, you could argue is like unlimited. If like his jump shot could ever get to a better level, like he could be, I mean, we'll start checking off some championships.
Right.
Like all of a sudden you're like, God, is he a better player than who knows? Like where he's going to on the list, it could get really high. So no one's arguing that Klay Thompson is better than Giannis in a vacuum. There is a level, though, as a sports fan and as a consumer of, like, I've bought stock into this guy, and I want to ride it out. And I still think there's more profits to be made. and I enjoy owning this stock
Right.
of Steph and Klay.
Right.
I enjoy, if you tell me they're back, they draft Wiseman, they make a trade exception for some random guy, it's like I just want to watch that little group play again. I do. And honestly, maybe I'm naive. I think a lot of people would agree with that thought process around here. They're all in on these guys. Why? Because they know them. It gets back to like when you say the Bumgarner type, like that's just your guy, or over the the Young and Rice days, or just any team over the years that just part of the reason the like the Lakers, right? Just not even Kobe, but just like Derek Fisher was one of their guys. Just some of the, even Lamar Odom. It's like, well, I went to war with that guy. Pau Gasol becomes one of your guys.
Well, think
like,
about
just grow with them.
Not to be.
And I listen. I like trades as much as the next guy, but there comes to a level when I really like the guy. It's like, well, if you could trade Max Scherzer for like, Garrett Cole and Aaron Judge or whatever, you'd be like, well, it's a no-brainer. But if you're a National fan, you're like, I fucking love Max Scherzer. I sign up to watch Max Scherzer every 5 nights. He's won me a championship. I'll watch when his career ends. It might suck the last couple of years, but I'm in with him. And there's part of that, like that of sports, that I think sometimes the NBA, because every headline is always about like, well, they say they've targeted these 7 free agents. They're willing to trade these 8 players on their roster. Well, they only got 12 players on their roster. They're going to trade the whole team every year. And that's like every headline.
Well, think about this,
the nature
John.
of the sport.
Like for you and I, for me, from a basketball standpoint, the last team I rooted for purely as a fan was the Kings when they were good. Like our last couple of years of high school, like the 02 Kings, right? And then I'd say the early like 2010, I was rooting for the Giants just as a fan then, I think. As opposed to like now we just root for like I just want cool stuff to happen. You root for people, whatever. Like you can find me rooting for a Yankees. You don't, the A's one year. The A's are easy.
Aaron Judge is from the Valley, Fresno State. I root for the shit out of Aaron Judge. Love the guy.
But imagine the Kings get screwed. The next year they come back, they trade everybody. They somehow reload. The only guy left over is like Bibby, but like Christie and Weber and Peja, like they just do some crazy shit. Then they win the title. It'd be awesome. It wouldn't feel the same as if the other group had won the title, right? There'd be a parade. Everyone would be thrilled. It wouldn't feel quite the same.
I remember how much pride everyone had when Weber got hurt. The next year, they have like the best record in the NBA for the first, I think, like 50, 60 games. It was just Doug, Bobby, Bibby, Vlade, Pollard, maybe Hito was there. And it was just like, God, this team this is sweet. Now Weber's coming back. Forced him in the Moose forced him in the starting lineup, and it kind of threw everything off because he was never the same after his bad knee injury, remember? But it was just, you resonated with those players. Like when you hear diehard Warriors fans, they just have a lot of respect for that We Believe team. You just felt like some of those guys, or Baron Davis, or I'd say the TMC guys like Chris Mullin, Hardaway, like you draft that guy. There is something to be said about if Nick Bosa becomes an all-time great player, if you're a Niner fan in 10 years, you're like, I watched that. Guy became part of my routine as a sports fan. Like, that was just my guy, right? Or Fred Warner or George Kittle. When you draft them, you cultivate them, they become a star, and then you win with them. I'm pro free agency as much as anybody, but I don't know.
By the way, do you remember? I remember Weber misses a 3 that would have tied it against the Timberwolves at the end of that series. They lose with like 20 seconds left. Weber ends up, I think it was like in the near right corner, and I remember that's when I realized like this thing's over. I remember feeling that on that shot, like this is over.
Yeah, I think that was our freshman year in college. Didn't KG have like a triple-double in game? Was that game 7?
I think it was game 7, yeah. It was it was game 7.
Yeah, it was game 7. But that's the thing, like you look back on that little run, it was really just like 2 or 3 years. It really wasn't as long as you quite felt. Now, They kept winning, but they were never
and they were solid, and then they traded Jason Williams, right?
Before but like, could this team win the championship? Or I think if you're the Warriors, and again, it is about big picture, right? Because you would say the Giants screwed up probably in like 15, 16, not pivoting on some guys that maybe the new age minds would do, the San Francisco Giants. Like Belichick never would have gotten the predicament that they ended up with. But I do think there's a balance. Like, even look at Belichick, who I think becomes like the Belichick and Billy Beane. Just trade everybody always early. Well, look at the core guys that they won the championships with over this decade. The team didn't change that much, did it, guy? It was like McCourty, Hightower, Gronk, Edelman. Like you can keep your own guys and kind of add. Now it's a little different in the NBA, right? Because a top 2 or 3 player you just can never turn down. And maybe that is just Middlecoff, your whole conversation. Like, listen, you love Klay Thompson. How do you ever turn down a guy that might be a top 10 player?
But this is where we go back to, maybe we wrap it up here, is like your initial point in mine is not you shouldn't do the deal. It's I hope they don't do the deal. Two different things.
I hope it's not even an opportunity.
Yeah, I want Giannis to stay on the Bucks. I want these guys who have established that they're stars in a certain place to be a star in that place, because I think it's bad for the league when guys are moving all the time.
I agree.
I hope they win the Wide World of Sports Championship this year.
Do you know that the Suns somehow made the trip? Did you see that? Suns and Wizards, like the last 2 teams that got invited.
How about that? One team from the East?
I do think it came. I heard someone say, like, there had to be a balance of, like, making a schedule. If you're not going to bring everyone back,
right?
The 22 number, I think, was easier than the 20 number to get games in. You know the way they set up a playoff, like a 7-game series, right? You play, Monday, Tuesday at Oracle, then you fly somewhere and you play Thursday, Friday. Do you think the scheduling of a 7-game series, because they're literally all at the same place, will be different?
Tighter?
Do you think they can be more flexible? Like, if both series are over, there's not set dates when you start in 2 days.
Yeah.
And why are you going to need like 2 days off?
What are you going to do? Hang out? Yeah, hang out in your sea-level hotel?
I saw someone tweeted, like, if you are going to Disney World expecting to see Giannis or LeBron just walking around the park, don't be fooled. They will not be allowed. It's like, guys, are people really going to go to Disney World expecting to just see them walking around the park? And honestly, are you really going to be able to be like, LeBron, you're not allowed to do this? Because I'd say that is not the way how the NBA has operated. That's going to be a little bit tougher to just be like,
I've had enough in my hotel room watching these people on the roller coaster. Magic Mountain,
Harden,
here I come.
You are not allowed to go to the other hotel and kick it. There are going to be pictures. I will be stunned if, like, James from Georgia on vacation with Dad isn't in line with, like, next to Russell Westbrook or something. Won't you? Like, I think that'll be very, very difficult to corral these guys worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
I'm not asking that much.
Who are used to taking, dictating everything. They're just going to be like, yeah, we're good. Well, whatever you tell us to do, we'll do. I'll be shocked if there ain't a picture of, like, Russ or James or any of these, even if it may be random guys, just on a ride. And I wouldn't blame them.
All right. On that note,
adios. Let's have a good week, people.
All right. Get in the DraftKings game.
Yeah, get in it.
Control what you can control.
Yes, let's win some money.